Hello, and good afternoon, and welcome to our very first Money Monday webinar. My name is Jack from the Black Bullion team, and I'll be your host for the next 20 or so minutes. In case you don't know, Money Mondays are a series of live webinars available through the Black Bullion platform, and it's just a chance for you to take some time out of your week and think a little bit around financial well-being. We'll be covering topics such as budgeting, dealing with finances with flatmates, interest rates, and much more. So today, I'm delighted to be joined by the founder and CEO of Black Bullion, Vivi Friedgut. The topic of today's session is going to be Budgeting 101. And we'll try and give a quick overview of the whys, where, and how students can use budgeting techniques throughout their academic journey to enrich their overall well-being. So I will welcome Vivi to the stage. Vivi, hello, how are you doing?
Good afternoon. Good. We're at opposite ends of the country today. So good to see you, Jack.
Of course, if anyone has any questions that they'd like to ask, please do pop them in the chat. We have someone monitoring the chat. So at the end of the session, we'll be able to have a little look and answer any questions you might have if they crop up during the live stream. So just to kick us off, Vivi, obviously the topic is Budgeting 101. Why should anyone budget?
Well, Jack, you know this is one of my absolute favorite topics because I am of the belief that if you can get your budget sorted, everything else gets easier. So why should anyone budget? You have money coming in, you have money going out. Most people have no idea about either of those things. And if you don't know how much is coming in, how much is going out, then how can you possibly keep on top of your money? And controlling your money is the best way to have power over it. So that's why I'm obsessed with the B word, even though it is one of the most boring words in the English language.
You mentioned, so I was listening to a podcast that you're on the other day, I think it's like 40-minute VC. And you've mentioned before, when discussing personal finance, that sometimes people might not know enough around the right questions to ask themselves when managing personal finances. So what are some questions to ask yourself, like whilst planning a budget?
Yeah, so it really is a great question, and it's very, very personal because after our relationships, money is the most intimate thing that we have. And so what's going to work for you won't necessarily work for me. And so really the most important question to ask yourself is, what is it that you're trying to achieve? So let's say that you want to go on a holiday to the sun, because we all need some sun. Let's say you want to go on a holiday in September of next year, and that holiday is going to cost you £2,000. Your budget needs to account for the fact that you need some extra money so that you can be saving in order to have the £2,000. But let's say that you are in a situation where your kids are going to need new shoes and you need to get them next week. That's a very different kind of budget. So the questions to ask yourself start with, what is it that I am trying to achieve? And the second question is, how do I get the money balance, the amount coming in and the amount going out, to where you need them to be in order to achieve those goals? And if you know where you're going, you can figure out a path. And if you don't know where you're going, then any path will take you there.
Sure. You just touched on it just then when you were talking about sort of like understanding what you have coming in and what you have going out. One of the things that I personally have struggled with in the past a little bit when I've been trying to think about budgeting is getting an accurate estimate of like how much something would cost, especially when I was at university. It was hard to understand, how much is a basket of shopping, or like when I pop down to Tesco, like, and I need to get some essentials, like how much is that going to cost? So when I've been trying to work a budget out and look forwards, I've struggled with that a little bit. Are there any sort of tools or resources or techniques that anyone can use to help out in that regard?
Yeah. So of course, your basket is going to look different to my basket. And that's why, again, this becomes so personal, right? So there's any number of tools and resources that you can use, from, a piece of paper and a pen all the way through to, the Black Bullion app that we have just released can be helpful here. We've got a tool inside the Black Bullion platform known as the spending snapshot, which I know you've had a bit of a play around on. And the point of the snapshot and the reason we built it is to answer exactly this question: what are other people spending, so that I can get a rough idea? And I don't know about you, Jack, but when I first moved out of home, toilet paper was the thing that I couldn't believe how much toilet paper cost, because there's just always been toilet paper, and who knew that it was so expensive? And so really it's what kind of life are you living? If you were eating steak every day, you're going to be paying a very different amount to somebody who is maybe vegetarian. Chances are actually vegetarians and vegans end up spending a lot more money, actually. So different lifestyles are different. What's really important is to figure out what are the things that you have to spend money on. So your electricity bill, right? And what are the things that you want to spend money on, like, your takeaway coffee. Finally, and I know we're doing this quickly, inflation is having a huge impact on students. And so what you spent on toilet paper 6 months ago is not what you're spending on toilet paper. I don't know why I'm obsessed with toilet paper today. But the differences in costs are also very determined by inflation. And so having a look at some of the tools and resources that are available, speaking to other students, is also really important. And all of these things can help you to kind of figure out roughly how much you can or should or are spending each week or month.
Yeah, sure. Could you touch a little bit on some of the more sort of actionable techniques? I know we spoke the other day around having sort of defined pots of money and then sort of paying yourself on a regular basis. Could you sort of talk around some of the techniques there?
Yeah, it's exactly what you've just said. So I'm a huge fan of the POTS system. It used to be the envelope system, but we don't use cash anymore. If you're using cash, the envelope system remains fantastic. The idea behind POTS is that, especially if you're a student and you're receiving a student loan, no one budgets 3 months at a time. It's absurd. And so what I suggest that people do is open a second bank account, or use the POTS functions if you're using something like a Monzo, and take your 3 months of money and divide it into 3 pots of 1 month, and then spend only that month, or even better, divide it into weeks, because that's even easier, and then spend the pot that you have allocated for that week or that month. When you run out of money, stop spending. And what it means is that you can budget your money very efficiently, buy what you need and want to buy, but are also locked into not overspending. And that can be really, really helpful.
Sure. Yeah. I'm also a big proponent of those sort of neobank apps where you can create pots. Oftentimes as well, you can lock pots until a certain date as well. So if it works for your budget, then you can set aside some money and sort of keep it there, and it will be released at a certain time. So moving on from that, and something that you just touched on a second ago, you've spoken before about how there is a distinction between not having enough money, and oftentimes I think everyone's been guilty of mismanaging money as well. So could you talk a little around sort of how budgets might be sort of similar or different for those two cohorts of people that sort of don't have enough at all, or people that might just be mismanaging?
Yeah, and I know we've often discussed this on the kind of policy when we talk about how can we help students nationally, and how much should we, along with other groups, be lobbying government and be talking kind of at the high strategic national level. And really, there are, as always, 2 types of people when it comes to money. And as you said, the one group doesn't have enough, and no matter what they do, they simply don't have enough money. There is too little coming in to pay for kind of what we would consider the standard basics, the regular stuff that you need. And then there are the people who have enough, but they're maybe not spending it well, don't really know where it's going, are doing what I used to do, which is you can't sleep, you're lying in bed, you go onto ASOS and you're like clicking using your PayPal. And really, again, every person has to, for themselves, decide and figure out what category they sit in. And this is where budgeting can be really helpful. So you've got money coming in, you've got money going out. If you were spending exactly what you have coming in, would you be able to cover your rent, cover your electricity, cover your food, and the like, or not? And I'm not talking about taking holidays. I'm not talking about buying a lot of clothes. I'm talking about being able to buy the stuff that you need. If the answer is no, there is especially if you're a student, loads of support, loads of support. Universities have hardship funding. There are food vouchers available on campus. In the Black Bullion platform, we have scholarships and bursaries. But there is a point at which budgeting isn't going to help because there is insufficient money. For everybody else, which is the majority of people, there is enough money, but not enough money to do everything. So if you want to take three overseas holidays and you want to eat top line steak and you want to have 4 coffees a day, your budget's probably not going to stretch that way. So looking at your budget, how much is coming in, how much is going out, and then do they line up? And if not, is it on you, or which is, where the personal responsibility stuff comes in, not being judgy, but this is real life? Or is it a case of, maybe you've bought one too many coffees, one too many, I don't know, avocado toasts, whatever it is that, that different people spend their money on.
Yeah.
No judging. I love avocado toast.
One of the sort of like concepts that's helped me quite a lot, and when I was at university, I had to think about a lot, was there's a difference between being able to buy something and being able to afford something. Just because you've got your sort of money sat there in your account and you can buy something doesn't mean that like over time you can actually afford that thing. So I think, that's something as well that sort of like has helped me, and sort of like when you conceptualize it and try and think about it in your brain, it can sort of help you stay away. It's like, I don't really need like brand new AirPods because I already have some that work. So just moving on, one of the things that I think is quite important to touch on, Vivi, is the challenges that people in education face today. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, how are the challenges that people in education face today, how are they different to what they would have experienced sort of 10 years ago? And what sort of financial challenges do you see on the horizon? What are the sort of trends looking like?
Yeah, it's a great question, Jack. So I think that there are 3. We'll do a bit of a Steve Jobs. There are 3 things that are very, very different. The first, of course, is the student loan system today is very different to what it was even 10 years ago. Forget when I was a student 1,000 years ago. The student loan system has changed. We don't have maintenance grants anymore. They are maintenance loans. They attract interest. With inflation where it is and interest rates where they are, that student debt is growing quite quickly and also to quite a high level. So that's very different to what it was 10 years ago, 5 years ago. The other thing that's particularly different right now, although we hope that it's starting to get better, is the cost of living, what we're calling the cost of living crisis. So prices have gone up, inflation is up, interest rates are up. All of these things mean that your money is going less far. So your toilet paper, because apparently that's the theme of the day, instead of costing 30p a roll is now costing 40p a roll. That makes a difference over a year. That's what happens with inflation. The other major trend, which is the one that I'm actually most interested in, is technology-enabled spending. So when I was studying 1,000 years ago, I couldn't get into catastrophic debt on one of these, right? The facility just wasn't there. Today, if you're bored or tired or feeling lonely or feeling happy or feeling sad, you can blow through money on your phone very, very easily. You can gamble, you can buy crypto, you can get into a lot of financial difficulty. My advice is, if at all possible, put your phone far away from you while you're sleeping. Disconnect your PayPal from your mobile, which is what I've done. So now if I do have oh my God, I want to spend some money, I physically have to get out of bed. I have to go to the living room. I have to turn on my laptop. And by that point, who can be bothered? So put up some barriers and some guardrails for yourself, because the technology, it's in ASOS's interest and PayPal's interest to make it easy for you. And if it's in their interest, by definition, it is not in your interest. So make it a little bit harder for yourself to spend money, and you'll keep more of your money for yourself.
Sure. Other online clothing brands are available, by the way. I know we've mentioned ASOS a fair bit.
Dior, Gucci, wherever you spend your money.
I completely agree as well. I like this. This is something that this is something that's sort of like cropped up personally for me. One of the things as well that I didn't realize how much I was sort of spending money on was subscriptions as well. So I know there are a lot of sort of like online subscription box services, but then also just regular things like your Amazon Prime, your Netflix, Spotify. It all adds up. The one thing I would say is just check in on your subscriptions. Like you can cancel any ones that you're not using. And then also for students as well, oftentimes there are discounted rates for students as well. So make sure that you're taking advantage of that, or hop on your family plan if your family does have a subscription plan as well. Okie dokes. Right. Well, we'll be moving on now to the quickfire round. I will just have a quick little shout out. Anyone that is watching, just remember that you can pop a little message in the platform or the YouTube chat, and it will show up here if you have any questions for Vivi that we would like to get to at the end. But first, I'll just do a few quick fire questions, Vivi. So only 1 or 2 sentence answers here, please. So the first one is, what book are you reading right now?
Oh, so I'm a real nerd, but I'm reading Sun Tzu's The Art of War. I'm actually rereading it for the 3rd time. I know, I'm a nerd. You asked for the truth. Running a business is basically like war. So it's a really fascinating, very old book, which I highly recommend everybody reads.
Never let them know your next move, and
exactly right.
Appear weak when you are strong. Appear strong when you are weak. All of that.
You're a nerd alongside.
Well, my next question was going to be, why are you reading that book? But I feel like you sort of covered that. There's lots of analogs for startup businesses. Right, I'll move on in that case. If you could switch lives with someone for one day, who would it be and why?
So I know he's super controversial, but I think living Elon Musk's life for a day would just be, first of all, I would go on a shopping spree like you cannot imagine. But I think the guy is just playing on such a weird, crazy level, reinventing the universe in so many different ways. Love him or hate him, I think his days must be pretty interesting. So that would be cool. And then I'd need a week to recover.
Absolutely. I think there's a autobiography out as well about Elon at the moment as well, which I was listening to on the audiobook.
It's not at all in my Amazon wish list.
Yeah. What's your go-to karaoke song, Vivi?
So I'm going through a bit of a Madonna phase at the moment. Yeah, the classics, which were not the classics when I was growing up. She was like the Taylor Swift of the day. But yeah, I'm going through a bit of a Madonna phase at the moment. Just any Madonna. I just love her. She was awesome in the day. Today a little bit weird. In the day, she was awesome.
She is an icon, to be fair.
She is an icon.
Yeah. If you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be and why?
So forgive me, any vegans and vegetarians, but honestly, it would be a toss-up between steak and eggs. I'm like a protein girl, so I'm really sorry. But eggs, I literally have eggs every single day because they're super versatile, really good with really high protein, and I just really like them. So I'm sorry for any vegetarians, forgive me.
Like I've changed my tune a little bit on this one, Vivi, because I don't like, not to be egg shaming or anything, but I do think they are quite versatile in that like there's lots of different ways you can do eggs, which is not the same for lots of other food. So
correct. I agree. Love eggs. Really sorry. Big fan.
What is your spirit animal?
Lion.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then finally, what is a hobby or interest that you'd pursue if you had more time?
If I had more time, I would love to do more snorkeling. I recently went on holiday to Croatia, which I highly recommend, and did a day of snorkeling and just absolutely loved it. But I'm not a confident enough swimmer. So I want to like raise all of those things. And if I had time, like that's totally what I'd be spending time doing.
Amazing. I always see people on the beach like going along the top with the snorkel, and I always see it and think it looks amazing. And I would love to do it. So we do have a question from the chat. Gagana, I'm sorry if that's not how you pronounce your name. I'm sorry if I'm butchering it, but it says, do you have any advice or help for students that are studying with children, Vivi?
Yeah, it's an increasing cohort in university campuses is students who have got children. I guess I've got a couple of ideas. I don't have kids myself and didn't have kids as a student, so I can't really speak of this from experience. But things that we've heard from others is check what facilities your university has. There are universities that have childcare or can be more flexible with your studying hours and the like, there are facilities where you can, if you're breastfeeding, for example, there are facilities that you can use for that. Universities are the last real safety net for people before we go out into the kind of the big bad world. And if you are a mature student, or you're a student that's got children, check what facilities your university has. They really are usually quite good, quite flexible with support. We've heard of people who've had to bring crying children into classes, and universities have tried to be sympathetic and helpful. Financially, make sure that you are getting all of the benefits that you are entitled to. Navigating the benefit system is a real maze. And again, universities can be really helpful with that in terms of helping you to make sure that you are unlocking every benefit that you might be entitled to. Speak to your university. Student support are just fantastically helpful people.
Yeah. I think all really, really good stuff there. I think quite universal as well. I don't know if that person was in UK university or international, but I think broadly speaking, universities do offer some levels of support for those with children. Okie dokes. Well, I'm being told now, I'm getting through from the studio now, Vivi, that that is all we have time for. It's gone quickly, hasn't it? It has gone quite quickly.
Yeah.
Vivi, where can people find out a little bit more about Black Bullion if they want to?
Well, of course, the first place to go is to blackbullion.com or at blackbullion for our Twitter or Instagram. We have got a brand new app out, which is all about not running out of money. So hopefully, if that's something that you are concerned about or want to learn more about, or earn some, rewards and maybe make some money out of it, please do check out the app. We want to make sure that every student in the country has access to helpful and useful and effective financial education. So hit us up anywhere that you want. We're everywhere.
Absolutely. And on this, I don't know if I'm pointed in the correct location, but somewhere on the screen will be a QR code you can scan, and that will take you to app.blackbullion.com, where you can go and you can download the Black Bullion app, which is available on the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store as well. So that's all we have time for today. Vivi, thank you so much for coming along. I hope everyone has found some of the discussion useful. I will see everyone next Monday at 3 p.m. live and direct right here. Thank you very much. I'll see you later.
Thanks, Jack. Bye-bye.
Bye.